Alright, howdy. Welcome to the cellblock Scorch, week 242A. We're happy to have you here, inmates. Recording this week's episode, I am Rev, and the prompt was given by Cricket, and the prompt is, "Oh, you didn't know? They came from somewhere else." Just a little bit of context before I just jump into my story here. I have written a Bionicle fanfic. If you don't know what Bionicle is, it was a very popular Lego kind of action figure toy line in the 2000s. It ran for about 10 years, from I think 2000 until 2011 or 2012. The lore is crazy in Bionicle, and it leaves a lot of room to play with it. And as well, unfortunately, the story itself didn't have the opportunity to finish, and so that's another reason that the Bionicle fandom is pretty alive and strong. And I heard this and I had an idea after reading, a lot of isekai manhwas and mangas and watching some isekai anime, specifically where the main character gets transported into a book that they're familiar with. And so from the knowledge they have about the world and the plot of the book, they kind of change things from that. And so I'd had the thought, what is a story that I would love to be isekai'd into? And yeah, I would be incredible, I think, to be isekai'd into the Bionicle world. And so that's why I chose to write this piece. So that being said, before I jump into the work itself, I do just have some quick notes so that you're not confused as you're listening, hopefully. In the Bionicle world, there are different elemental powers, and each Bionicle, Toa, or Matoran has one of these elemental powers. And each power has a prefix. And this is important because I have taken those prefixes. For example, for Earth, the prefix is Onu. And so if you're talking about a Matoran of Earth, you would say an Onu Matoran. Or if you were talking about a Toa of Earth, you would say Onu Toa. That doesn't happen often, but it could. Mainly Onu Matoran, or more specifically, sections of... I'm digressing too much. The point is, each element has a prefix, and I have adapted these prefixes to work not as only prefixes, but also as pronouns. And so hopefully, to help you not get confused, I'm going to go over what those prefix pronouns are and what element they correspond to, not so that you remember, but just so you're not completely caught unaware when I start throwing out weird pronouns. So starting off, there are 5 elements that are relevant to my story, characters who have those elements, and so there's light that has the prefix av, and so the pronouns are av and avs. There's fire with the prefix ta, earth with the prefix onu, ice with the prefix ko, and finally air with the prefix le, L-E. With air specifically, I've chosen to use the Spanish pronoun el, just because I like the way that it sounds better than le. I like L better than Li or Le as the pronoun. So, hopefully it's not too confusing. Hopefully I haven't rambled too much. That all being said, I'll talk more about some things after. But we're going to get into the story itself now. My piece is titled The Lightshiner Shadow-Doubts. Halrin stood at the top of the Colosseum Tower overlooking Metru Nui. Turagaduma had called Kom and a few of the other Toas there. Norik and Bomanga were there from the Toa Haga, and Likan, Korok, and Nidiki were there from the Toa Mangai, along with Takanuva, the newest Toa in the Matoran universe and the only Toa of light. For the time being, the unique Toa had been acting as a member of the Mangai, but Halrin was unsure if Av would remain there. Av's Matoran friends had been destined to become the Toa Naika in the original universe, but Halrin wasn't sure if Ko's actions would alter that. Ko hoped that Matoro would never need to give up Ko's life. Halrin also wondered about Toa Ignika, the personification of the Mask of Life. Would they ever come into existence? Halrin had withdrawn from the conversation the Toa were having with Turagaduma about the next steps to take in order to minimize the fallout from the deposal of the Makuta Pterodax following his capture. Pterodax's betrayal, Takanuva suddenly said. How did you know? I didn't, Halrin said, just a touch too quickly. I suppose Motunui deemed prudent that I was suspicious of the Makuta. See, if anyone else said that, I would accept it, Takanuva replied. Halrin didn't like where this seemed to be going. But there's been too much that you've had a hand in. Everyone was looking at Halrin now. I've checked the records about Tuyet in the Onumetru archives, and while they don't say it, I expect that you knew what Ga was doing, long before anyone else. Halrin waited to see if Takanuva would say anything else, but Av didn't. The floor of the tower seemed to shake. Was it actually? Or was it Ian who was shaking? He couldn't tell. They can't know that he's Ian. Wait, Ian? He hadn't thought of himself as Ian. Halrin hadn't thought of himself as Ian in years. Ko didn't know why, but Ko felt strongly that the others couldn't know who Ko had been. The silence dragged on, and Halrin prayed to the Great Spirit that someone else would say something, take the attention off of him. To Ko's relief, Nidiki spoke up. I'm not sure I like your voice tone, Lightshiner. El stepped toward Av. Are you shadow-doubting our Crother's loyalty? Takanuva stepped to Nidiki in return. It's a fair concern, and I hardly think you're one to talk about loyalties, given your history with the Dark Hunters. Likan stepped between the two members of his team. Enough! We've been through too much for this senseless infighting. We'll talk about your concerns later, Takanuva. We have more important Rahi to tackle right now. Halrin felt Ko's whole self relax, but then Norik spoke. No, I think it is time to talk about the Kikanalo in the room. While I think our Avthar could have approached the question with more tact, it is one that needs answering. Likan looked taken aback by Norik, but Bomonga stood beside On's team leader, with On's arms crossed and nodded On's head in agreement. It was then, in the midst of this chaos and strife, that Duma stepped forward. Korok, Ta said, addressing the other Toa of Ice in the meeting. I think it is time that you tell your comrades what you told me all those years ago, after Matoro told you where to find Toa Halrin's body, dead in the mountains. Halrin jerked his head up to look at Korok. What was this about Ko's death? Ko had never heard of it. Korok stood from the table where he had remained seated this whole time. Matoro had reported that Ko and Halrin ran into trouble with some frost beetles in the mountains. Toa Halrin had sent the Matoran to run to safety while Ko took care of the beetles. Matoro found a hiding spot in a small crevice and took refuge there until the fight was over. After waiting for some time for Halrin to call for Kom, Ko exited the crevice to see that the frost beetles had left, but that Halrin's body remained. Matoro is an honest Matoran, and he raced back to Ko Metru and told myself and Navarro of Ko's death. We raced to the mountain, but days had passed, and we had already noticed Ko's Toa star go out. It was night as we approached the location of Halrin's body, and as I looked to the sky where Ko's star had been, it reappeared. Navarro and I raced to where Matoro had told us to go, hoping that Ko was still there. And to our surprise, Ko was. Ko seemed a bit off, though, and I felt that Ko was no longer himself, but was from somewhere else. Navarro and I told Turagaduma of the experience after returning to Metrunui, and Ta told us not to tell anyone, not even Toa Halrin, what had happened. Turagaduma spoke again. I cannot say why, for even I myself do not know, but the Great Spirit let me know that Halrin was from elsewhere, and that Ko cannot speak of it directly. But faith, my brothers, for Ko is undoubtedly with us. Matanui has assured me so.
What up? It's Cricket again! I have so many recently. I'm here to record my judge comments for week 242A. I got 2 pieces this week. Octo wrote something really good, really creative. It was super intriguing, but I was just so obsessed with what Rev did. Never in a million years did I expect Bionicle fanfiction to occur, but it's so good, it's so well done, the world building was so interesting to me, I was just so delighted by it, and I absolutely had to choose it. And I hope you all enjoyed it as well.
Alright. I think I maybe should have explained a little more before, but I didn't want to get rambling and have you just trying to connect things without context. So just 3 terms real quick. Toa, Matoran, Turaga. Toa are like warriors. Matoran are just normal villagers. And Turaga are like elders. So the Toa protect the Matoran, and the Turaga give the Toa and the Matoran alike guidance and wisdom. So, hopefully that wasn't too confusing as you were listening. I do want to make a quick note about the names here. All of the names here, except for Halrin, Navarro, and Korok, are canon. Those are real Bionicle names. The Toa Mangai, which is that specific team of those warrior Bionicles, only some of them have names, but there are 5 Ice Toa, not 5, there are 4 Ice Toa in that team, and none of them have canonical names. And so I kind of, I decided to make the names up myself. Korok is adapted from the name of a water avatar in Avatar The Last Airbender, Avatar Kuruk. Only difference there is it's the same name, just Korok is spelled with 2 O's, while Kuruk is spelled with 2 U's. Mostly because I think Avatar Kuruk is super cool. Navarro is an adaptation of Nevada, which is the Spanish word for snowy mountain. And then other note, Takanuva's name comes from his Matoran name Takua, combined with the Toa he knew at the time in canon in the actual story, which was a Toa team called the Toa Nuva. There you get Takanuva. I really like the sound of Takanuva, and I didn't want to try coming up with a new name. He's a central character throughout the series, and I think he deserves to have his own name, even if the reasoning behind it doesn't hold in my little isekai AU, because Takanuva comes in way later, chronologically. So, yeah. So I think this might have been the second time, actually, that I wrote for this little fanfic story. Third time, maybe. Anyway, yeah. I think this was the third time that I wrote for this. And so when I heard, I'd already been kind of writing this isekai story, and so when I heard the prompt of, oh, you didn't know they came from somewhere else, it was very easy and natural to take that and slot it into the isekai story, as that is a central point of isekai, that your main character has come from somewhere else. So, yeah. So I know for sure, if you check on our Patreon, my Ember, these, because they're fanfic, they should be available on our Patreon for free. They shouldn't be behind the paywall at all. And so if you check the Ember, my Ember for week 238, and then also, I'm trying to remember if the other thing I've written for it was actually part of the Scorch, or if it was just, I just talked about the idea and then, yeah, there it is. 231. So if you look at our Embers, at my Embers 231 and 238, those are both connected to this story. And again, they should be free on our Patreon to look at, because they are fanfic, and you can't write fanfic for profit. We like to keep things above the board here. So, yeah. I really love Bionicle. The lore is deep. The lore is wild. Like I said earlier, it leaves a lot of room to play with stuff. I still, every so often, get out my own Bionicles and make new creatures or Toa with them, and it's just a grand old time. Even if you're an adult, let yourself play. Playing is fun, and don't let other people tell you otherwise. That's all I got concerning my Scorch itself this week. Let me snag my prompt that I gave for next week. So, I've been feeling some kind of way. Really in the mood for tragedies and whatnot, and it's an on and off continuing thing over the last couple of years. I really enjoy tragedies. I think they make some of the most compelling stories. And so the prompt that I gave for next week for 243 is just give me the most self-indulgent and or pretentious tragedy or horror story that you want to. I just wanted my fellow cellmates to have fun, but write something sad and or terrifying. So, I'll be seeing you in a few weeks, when I make comments as a judge for that 243 week. Until then, keep that fire burning, and thanks for sticking around with us.
The Cellblock Scorch is a production of Stellacore, an independent group of nerds sharing their obsessions with the world. Links to all our projects, including Instagram, Tumblr, YouTube, Patreon, and Ko-Fi, can be found on our link tree, posted in each episode description. Follow us on Tumblr or Instagram to see the prompt of the day before the episode drops, and a quote from each Scorch the day after. If you would like to support our creative endeavors, you can give a one-time tip to the Ko-Fi of the writer of your favorite Scorches, or check out our Patreon. There, you can access the Scorches and episode transcripts for free, or sign up for Spark level support for $5 a month to gain access to our embers as well.